I was not going to come back yet. I know I've been gone for weeks, months maybe, and I was not going to come back yet. I don't have any of my settings right. Anyway, I've got something so disturbing tonight, and I've consulted with a number of people, including Mrs. Barron podcast, and a number of other people. Some of the names you've almost assuredly heard of if you're listening to this. If you care enough about politics and my brand of politics, you've probably heard of some of the names of the people that I've consulted with on whether or not to discuss what I've found, what I've uncovered. So I will get there. I promise you. I'm not teasing you. This is not a strip tease. But I will kind of give you some background for it because I have been gone for a while. And as I give you the background, understand I'm not killing time. I don't want to make this any longer than it has to be. I don't want it to be painful. I want this as painless as possible, but I didn't know how else to get this information out into the public. And I think it is disturbing enough that it needs to be out in the public. It is, frankly, one of the more disturbing things I've run across. But let me give you the background of how I did this. There's a search function in Google I learned about years ago. And everybody knows how to use Google. You open google.com and you get a search window and you start typing in your stuff. A lot of you have it as the default browser. So you just go up to where you would normally type like baroncoleman.com or whatever. You go up there and you just start typing something, closest grocery store, and it'll pop up a Google search because Google is your default search engine. But if you actually go to the google.com page, it'll give you a search window, but there are a whole lot of functionality you can do in that search window that most people don't know about. And the reason I'm confident most people don't know about it is when I ran by several very sophisticated, again, household names in some instances, names that people that have advised presidents, advised on mega national matters and instances. And I said, hey, have you ever heard of this search functionality in Google called Google Trends? And several of them were like, no, never heard of it. What is it? What does it do? Some of them were like, I kind of heard of it, but I don't really know what it was. I first heard of it when I was advising for a grocery store chain decade and a half ago, probably a long time ago. And I was a very small member of a team, but I was part of a team, and the team had a very sophisticated guy on it, and he had discovered this functionality on Google where you could go and you could sort of view what it was people were searching and when, and you could get trends related to it. And so I'll demonstrate that for you on something random, but I'll give you an idea of how it works, and then I'll explain where I first applied this to any sort of breaking national story. And then I'll explain how I applied it to Charlie Kirk. And then I'll explain one of the most disturbing things I've come across in a very, very long time. A very long time. And I've discovered a lot of disturbing things. A quick Google search of my name will reveal some of the garbage I've been involved with over the course of my life. But this potentially takes the cake. This potentially is one of the more disturbing things I've ever been involved in. So let me show you briefly. And for those of you who already know, this is a little primer, but that's fine. I want to show you briefly how this search functionality works so that as I'm saying things, you guys understand what I'm talking about. If you go to up here, trends.google.com, you'll get this search window right here. And I can search anything. You can see I searched Broncos versus Colts. Atlanta Braves, right? I can search Atlanta Braves and I can click explore. Well, that's a terrible. Oh, because I didn't put this. All right. Atlanta Braves, and it gives me an index. And this is set for over the last 24 hours. So I can see over the United States, that's what this is up here. Over the last 24 hours in all categories of web searches, when the Braves were searched the most over the geographically limited right here, the United States. And you can make it worldwide. You can make it anything you want. So let's start with the United States. Let's say the past week. Over the last week, the moment the Atlanta Braves were searched more than anything else was September 9th at 8 p.m. For whatever reason, September 9th at 8 p.m., across the United States, more people were interested in Googling the Atlanta Braves than at any other time. You'll notice the waking and sleeping and all this, and you probably some games in here or whatever. But it's indexed at 100 being the most searches at any given time in the time frame you've referenced here. And again, I will explain why this is important, and maybe you can already see where I'm going and you understand why this is so disturbing. It may be the most disturbing set of facts about the Charlie Kirk assassination that I've come across. And if I broaden this out to 30 days, you'll notice that now it is August 23rd, 2025 was the day that the Atlanta Braves were the most searched of the last 30 days. And then as they have gone on a little bit of a losing streak or a slide, you can see interest in the Atlanta Braves has waned over time. And it reached a low right here of 34 on September 12th. And what that means is only 34% of the searches were run on that day relative to the August 23rd peak of 100. It's indexed to 100 if you don't know what that means. That doesn't mean there were 100 searches on this day. It means there were some number of searches, but it's the most number of searches in the last 30 days. This doesn't mean there were 34 searches or 35 searches. It means there were 34% of the number of searches that were to the index of 100. That's how it works. That's across the United States. I can limit it to the Atlanta metro market, and I'll get a different set of numbers. I can limit it to the state of Georgia, and I'll get another set of numbers. They look the same because interest sort of is across the board. I could probably go to, let's say, the state of New York, for example. And I could see here, August 24th it was. And there's a low of actually 0 right here in the state of New York. They don't like the Atlanta Braves, apparently, on that particular day. That's how Google Trends works. Now, I first came across Google Trends as an item of national prominence, or in the breaking of a nationally prominent story. Let me say it that way. Back in the wake of the Donald Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. The guy's name that I was Google Trend searching was Thomas Matthew Crooks. He was the alleged shooter that was on the ARG building. And when I did a Google Trend search, I thought, well, that's really weird. Because I started doing it in nationally. And of course, as you would imagine, there was no interest in Thomas Matthew Crooks nationally. And 1 day, 5 days, 7 days, 30 days, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, no interest nationally in Thomas Matthew Crooks until the day of the Butler shooting. Because on that day, everybody learned his name. And what did he do? The same thing we all do. We all run to Google and we type in Thomas Matthew Crooks. And so on the day of the Butler shooting, there was a gigantic spike. And so I thought, let me drill down on this, though, with this search functionality. I can limit it to custom date ranges. I can do 2004 to present, basically all of Google's searches. I could do a custom range, and I could cut it to any particular dates I want to. And so I started doing that. And I started doing custom ranges around particular geographic locations. And then news broke in the days after the Donald Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Whether credible or not, I don't know, but news broke that there were some cell phones that pinged at Thomas Matthew Crooks' house. Again, I don't know if that's true, but that was what the news was saying. And those cell phone pings were linked to Washington, D.C. They also pinged in Washington, D.C. So I thought, let me do something random. Let me look and see if anyone in Washington, D.C. had been searching Thomas Matthew Crooks before the shooting. So I pull up the dates and I exclude the shooting date. And lo and behold, there were hits. And I thought, that's weird. That's such an unusual name. There can't be a lot of Thomas Matthew Crooks. Why were they searching Thomas Matthew Crooks in the year or so, a few times, not every day, but a couple of hits in the Washington, D.C. area? So I thought, well, maybe that's just happens. So let me try some other jurisdictions. And I tried New York, and I tried California, and I tried Pennsylvania, and I tried Texas, and I tried Florida. I tried big states across the country, and I got no hits. And I kept coming back to Washington, D.C., and I thought, why would it be hitting in Washington, D.C., obviously in Pennsylvania as well, but not hitting in any of these other states? Let me try Alabama. I had long contacts in Alabama. I lived there for 20 years. So I tried Alabama, and lo and behold, there were hits. And so if you search, we'll just keep using the Atlanta Braves here for a second, but if you look up at Alabama, you'll notice I can take Alabama and I can break it down by metro area: Birmingham, Columbus, Georgia, Dothan, Huntsville, Meridian, Mississippi. So West Alabama, Mobile, the Bay Area, Central West Alabama, the Selma area, Montgomery. And so I started clicking, where are these searches coming from in Alabama? Who in Alabama is interested in Thomas Matthew Crooks? And what I found was the searches were limited to the Huntsville, Decatur, Florence area. Why would someone in Huntsville be worried about Thomas Matthew Crooks or be searching Thomas Matthew Crooks? And the only places on earth I could find who were searching Thomas Matthew Crooks before the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting were Washington, D.C. and Huntsville, Alabama. And so my mind gets curious. What is the connection? There doesn't have to be a connection, but there probably is a connection. If it's not in California, and it's not in Pennsylvania, and it's not in Florida, and it's not in Texas, and it's not in Indiana, and it's not in Ohio, and it's not in New York, but it's in Huntsville, Alabama, and Washington, D.C., what is the connection? And then I start to remember, wait a minute. The FBI has a headquarters in Washington, D.C., obviously, but they also have a massive facility in Huntsville, Alabama. Maybe that's the connection. Maybe someone in the FBI was searching Thomas Matthew Crooks before the Trump shooting, which would be remarkable, by the way. Which would be remarkable. But I can't prove that. That's just one data point. Out of all the trillions of data points on Earth, that's just one. And I have a saying, if something happens once, it's a random occurrence. Twice is a coincidence. 3 times is a pattern. 3 times is a pattern. And I only had the one name to go by because there were no known accomplices or alleged accomplices. There were people speculating, there was a second shooter, or there was a third shooter, or there was a team over here, or there was a team over there. There were all these things. Someone must have been involved. Someone must have been helping him, but there were no names. I only had the one name to go on, and that's just a random occurrence, even though it's a little weird that it was in Washington, D.C., and a little weird that it was in Huntsville. All I had to go on was that. And I've done this with other things. As school shooters have popped up, as mass casualty events have popped up, I have searched the names of the people. And I don't usually get any hits. Most people, for whatever reason, just aren't searched that much. Now, maybe if you're on the radio or you're on television or you have a podcast or you're a sports figure or you're on a movie, or you're a politician, your name probably does get searched some. But most people name, William Francis Sanderson, he's probably not searched all that much. Not enough to show up at a blip in random cities. And then the Charlie Kirk shooting happened. And I kind of sat there for a while and I thought, do you want to do the Google Trends search for the shooter? Do you want to be armed with this information? Do you really? Do you really want to know this? This is a good comment here. How stupid are the agents at the FBI? I don't know that these are agents at the FBI. I will draw no conclusions tonight. I'm only laying out facts. I will not say this is definitive proof someone at the FBI. I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is giving you the facts and you can draw your own conclusions. But incognito mode will not stop the Google Trends from showing up. It will not stop. If you use incognito mode in Huntsville, Alabama, it will still show up as a Huntsville, Alabama search. Now, if you used a VPN and you set it to Albania, maybe. But how do most people do their jobs? And most people don't know this functionality exists. I'm probably spoiling it from ever being used again, frankly, in a high-profile event, but I think this is important. That was one of the considerations I had with people as I talked about whether to go public with this information. Not that 1 trillion people are going to find out about this, but just in case. I probably am spoiling my ability to ever do this again, but I think it's that important because the information I found is that disturbing. And I'm going to give it to you in a minute. It is that disturbing. Oh, you're telling me the shooter? Hey, it's worse. Wait. Boy, you're going to be shocked if you think it's just the shooter's name showing up in different locations. It's bad. It's bad. So let me show you. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. I got to get rid of the Atlanta Braves search because that's irrelevant. So let me show you the first search I ran. Again, the shooter's name was identified on September 11th, or maybe early September 12th. Early September 12th, The shooter's name is identified. It was Tyler James Robinson. So I did a search for Tyler James Robinson nationally over the entire United States for the past 7 days. And you'll notice the gigantic spike right after the news broke. But I noticed right over here, there was a little blip on September 9th at 7 p.m. Damn, that's weird. And keep in mind, this is a blip large enough to show up on an index at a 2. Now, granted, I'm going to keep going. You're going to be surprised by what I show you here in a few minutes. It's a blip large enough to show up as a 2 the day before the Kirk shooting. The day before the Kirk shooting, someone in the United States searched Tyler James Robinson, the full name, first, middle, last name of the shooter. Now, what's interesting about that is I've not seen him listed anywhere as Tyler James Robinson. I've seen Tyler Robinson a lot. I've seen his name, his mom's name. I think her name was Amber or something. She didn't do anything, so I'm not blaming her. Sure, I probably should have named her, but public. I've seen her dad's name. I've seen his dad's name. I've seen his roommate's name. I've seen all these other things. But I've not seen anywhere where it said Tyler James Robinson. I had to do some sleuthing to figure that out. But it showed up there the evening before the Kirk shooting. So I thought, where's it coming from? Surely not. Surely it's not going to. So I go back to my notes. And I look at where were the 2 places that Thomas Matthew Crooks showed up in a Google trend search before the shooting. Well, there's Washington, D.C. at 11 a.m., the day before the Charlie Kirk shooting. And you'll see here where the news finally broke that it was, in fact, Tyler James Robinson. But notice that. That's weird. That's weird. That's going to be a recurring theme today. That's weird. You're telling me at 11 a.m., the day before the shooting? Now, keep in mind, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on September 10th. Someone in Washington, D.C. metro area is searching Tyler James Robinson the day before the shooting? Why? Why? You can see clearly when the news broke. Why were they searching the day before? I go back to my notes. I take notes when I do this kind of stuff, sleuthing around. I go back to my notes. Oh, it wasn't just Washington, D.C. I forgot. It was also Huntsville. Surely not. I think to myself, before I even do the search, Barron, if this shows up in Huntsville, I'm going to start to panic. I will officially start to panic if this shows up in, oh, there it is. 4 p.m. the day before the Charlie Kirk shooting, Huntsville, Alabama. Tyler James Robinson. Again, I'm not drawing a conclusion. I'm not telling you that somebody worked at a particular place. What I am telling you is somebody searched him in Huntsville. A Huntsville IP searched for Tyler James Robinson about the same time a Washington, D.C. metro area searched for Tyler James Robinson. Well, now we're really getting weird. Are you telling me there could be more, though? Is it possible? Well, let me drill down not just to the D.C. metro area, but the District of Columbia itself. Here again is where the news broke. Everybody on the planet went and searched Tyler Robinson. And you'll notice the third name searches kind of fell off the map. But look at that. Look how strong of a signal that is in Washington, D.C. the night before the Charlie Kirk assassination. the night before the Charlie Kirk assassination in Washington, D.C., in the D.C. metro area, and in Huntsville, you're getting this strong of a signal. Someone is searching the name Tyler James Robinson. Right there, Tyler James Robinson. Well, now this is just bananas, I tell myself. Surely it has to stop here. Surely it has to stop here. And I even put my computer down. I closed the clamshell on the MacBook and I thought, should I just stop? You know, there's a difference between what you can do and what you should do. Should I do any more searches? Because at this point, I'm getting a little suspicious about where these people or why these people might have been doing the searches. And again, I will not draw conclusions here. I can give you options. Maybe people work at government agencies. Maybe they work at private enterprise. Maybe they work for foreign states. Maybe they work, who knows why they're doing the searches or who they work for when they're doing the searches. Maybe it's just somebody with a burning desire, 9 o'clock the day before a Charlie Kirk assassination, to look up Tyler James Robinson for no apparent reason. Maybe. And then I get a weird piece of information. The night of the assassination, I start seeing everybody on Facebook saying, oh, there's a plane and its transponder went off. And I thought, nonsense. This is confirmation bias. Surely this is confirmation bias. They're listing the name of the guy who owns the plane. They're listing the tail number of the plane. They're listing the company the guy works for. And I'm thinking, this cannot have anything to do with it. And I'll tell you the story real quickly. About an hour after the assassination, a random plane owned by a random guy takes off from Provo, Utah, about an hour away, or 30 minutes away, however far away it is. And it flies south, and it looks like it's heading towards Arizona. But before it gets to the Utah-Arizona border, it looks to me like it turns its transponder off based on the flight pattern. Again, I cannot confirm all that. I wasn't on the plane, and I am not an aviation professional. Going solely by what people were saying. But when I got those hits on Tyler James Robinson, I thought, I gotta look. I gotta know. Is it possible that the owner of the plane, a guy named Derek Maxfield, and I am not accusing him of anything, by the way, this is not an accusation. This is me simply telling you what is in Google Trends. Just transmitting factual information. No opinion. No allegation of fact other than what I can show right here. A guy named Derek Maxfield is associated, either owns the LLC or is associated with the LLC that allegedly owns the plane, that allegedly turned his transponder off, that allegedly caused people to freak out on Facebook and act like it could have something to do with it. No accusations. But I do the Google Trends search anyway in Washington, D.C. area. And I see here where everybody starts freaking out, saying that the transponder got turned off. I think, what the hell is this? Why was someone in the Washington, D.C. metro area searching for Derek Maxfield on September 7th and then not again until the name breaks with the weird plane thing? That's just weird. But maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe there's nothing more to it. You know what? Instead of popping off every time, I'm just going to do this. This is easier, I think. Well, that's just the Washington, D.C. metro area, though. Maybe it's people in Maryland. So let me drill down and see Huntsville, Alabama. Lo and behold, there's this Huntsville connection again. What the hell's going on in Huntsville, Alabama? Trust me, guys, I looked a lot of places. I didn't see any. I cannot tell you without a doubt there's not a single hit prior to the shooting anywhere else, but I can tell you I looked a lot of places. You see the hit here where it became public about it, and then you look back here and you think that's just friggin' weird. This is 10 a.m. the day before in Huntsville, Alabama. Well, what about Utah? Okay, well, here are the hits in Utah from where the news started breaking the night of September 10th and on the next few days. But why? What is this? This is 2 days before the shooting at 8 a.m. Again, the day before the shooting at 10 a.m. What? And then I just drill it right down to the District of Columbia. I exclude all the other dates. In the morning of the shooting, about 3 hours before the shooting, I get a hit there. Well, I think, well, maybe they're just looking for him. And again, I'm making no definitive conclusions by any of this. I wasn't making a definitive conclusion with Tyler James Robinson back here. And I'm not making a definitive conclusion here where you see a little blip days before the shooting in Washington, D.C. I don't know what it means. But the search continues. I have to know more. So I go to the tail number of the plane. N888 KG, November 888 Kilo Golf. And you can see here where the news breaks about the plane. The evening of September 10th, the evening after the shooting, you can see the news break here about the plane, and everybody starts rushing to look at it as they come across it on their Facebook and Twitter feeds and all this. But what is it in Utah? Now, granted, the plane's based in Utah. But why the interest in this plane? There was no other interest before. And so I go to Arizona. Remember, he looked like the plane was headed to Arizona, and all of a sudden there's a hit there. 2 days before the shooting. 3 days. Yeah, 2 days before the shooting. Utah was the day before the shooting. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Again, no accusations, no allegations, just showing you what the Google Trends search show. I've downloaded all this data. I've saved all the screenshots. That may have no value. Maybe total coincidence. Yeah, if you're walking through the grocery store and you look and you see a penny on the floor and you pick it up, someone dropped a penny. But if you look up about 20 feet and there's another penny, you think, oh, someone dropped 2 pennies. That's weird. And you look up another 20 feet and there's another penny. And you think, 3 pennies all 20 feet apart? That's really weird. And you go around the corner and there's another penny and another penny and another penny and another. At some point, someone's not just dropping pennies, but I don't know that for a fact. Maybe they have a hole in their pocket that very consistently allows 1 penny at a time to come out at the pace they're walking. I don't know that. Well, this took place on the campus of, actually, I've got one more here, I think. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I did here. This November 888 Kilo Golf here. I excluded, you'll notice the date here. I excluded everything after September 1 in the Washington, D.C. area. Because I asked myself, and I did this with several of the other ones, and I can go through examples if you want me to, just so you can kind of see how this works. But I asked myself, is it possible I'm getting some kind of statistical noise around the shooting, around the assassination attempt? So I take the plane. This is the first one I did it with. I took the plane. I thought, okay, let me just exclude everything within a week of the shooting. The shooting took place on September 10th. I go back and I say, arbitrarily, I'm going to just select September 1 for no reason whatsoever. And I'm going to go back a year and accidentally went back 13 months, whatever. And you'll notice in the Washington, D.C. area for November 888 Kilo Golf, there is no interest whatsoever in this plane in that area. No statistically relevant interest until the week and a half before the shooting. And all of a sudden, there's keen interest in November 888 Kilo Golf in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Now, we could keep this same date range. I'll do this live. And we could do Utah. Same date range. No data. Meaning, no statistically relevant quantity of searches on November 888 Kilo Golf in the 13 months leading up to the shooting, excluding the 10 days before the shooting, which was the exact same thing I did for the Washington, D.C. metro area. I don't even know if I've done District of Columbia alone here. Let me try this live. We are researching live on air. Okay, not in District of Columbia, but if you go to the Washington, D.C. metro area, it has changed. Are they cleaning it up on the fly? You guys saw it. It was there. You are kidding me. It is gone. It was there. I don't know what else to do. I've already downloaded the data, so it doesn't matter. Let's go to Utah Valley University, the site of the scene. The Washington, D.C. metro area. Again, I excluded the day of the shooting here because there was so much interest, it was messing up all the statistics. But in the 3 weeks leading up to the shooting, no interest in Utah Valley University in the Washington, D.C. metro area. On September 2nd, all of a sudden we have some interest. September 3rd, a little more interest. September 7th, peak interest, 3 days before the shooting. The next day, a little interest and then back down. But I think maybe someone's going to college. It's probably a fine school. It looked beautiful on campus. The pictures I've seen around campus look stunning. I have no idea. I've never heard of it before. Well, let's get out of the Utah Valley University and let me go to what I think is the most stunning fact yet. The fact I think that could put it all together for people who want to draw conclusions. I don't want to draw conclusions. But for those who feel compelled to draw conclusions, let me show you something pretty wild. For the first day or so after the shooting, we were told Tyler James Robinson, the alleged assassin, lived with his parents. In fact, his dad's the one that turned him in. But in the last couple of days, news has broken that no, in fact, he had a roommate. And the alleged roommate's name, allegedly, is Lance Twiggs. I cannot put allegedly on this enough. The roommate's alleged name is Lance Twiggs. Twiggs, Twiggs, Lance. So I thought, sure, let me see. Let me just search Lance Twiggs. It's a weird enough name that if it popped up, someone's looking for that guy. Now, keep in mind, these people are alleged to be in radical, leftist groups. And they're alleged to be doing radical things to their bodies. And I have no doubt if you're kind of wild and you're discussing on Discord, allegedly, shooting the assassination of a beloved public figure, I'm guessing you probably the guy someone might want to search from time to time. So I pull up Lance Twiggs and I get 2 hits in the Washington, D.C. metro area. But they're not recent. No, they're not recent at all. This is from January of 2023. This is almost 3 years ago. And I get another little blip here towards the end of 2023, almost 2 years ago. Somebody's radar blipped in the Washington, D.C. area on the roommate of the assassin 2 and 3 years ago. Again, I don't know who it was. Might be a guy that took a fancy to the roommate. Might be a girl that took a fancy to the roommate. Might be a cousin who was in town in Washington, D.C. and thought, I got to look up Lance Twiggs. Now, Lance Twiggs lives in Utah, presumably has for a long time. But somebody in the area took a keen interest on Lance Twiggs several years ago. So I start thinking, if I'm doing all these searches in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm plotting an assassination, what else might I need to search? I looked up Utah Valley University. I looked up the alleged, what some people were saying could possibly be a getaway vehicle. I looked up the owner of the said vehicle. I looked up the shooter. What else? Well, if you go to the scene of the crime, there was a very unusually named building that the alleged shooter allegedly perched on. Let's just assume everything I say in this thing's alleged. It's called the Lossee Center, Lossee. Now, if you do a nationwide search for just the word Lossee, you're going to get some hits in the Nevada area. I think there's a city or a road or something there named Lossee. But the rest of the country is pretty stark when it comes to Lossee. And if you go to Losi Center, very few people outside of the state of Utah have ever fancied what the Losi Center is. They've not Googled it if they have. But if you're planning to assassinate somebody and you're looking for good places to do the assassination and you want to know more about those places, you might Google them. You might. And if you pull up a map of the little courtyard where Charlie Kirk was assassinated and you look around and you think, well, that might not be a bad spot because you could run right off the northern corner of the building there and you're home free. You got a getaway car. So I looked it up. Now, this is a while ago. This was the Huntsville area. For some reason, mid to late spring, somebody takes a keen interest in the Losi Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And that's the only hit we get. Now, granted, see here, I've excluded the day or two leading up to the shooting and the day of the shooting because it's, again, all the statistical noise just ran all this stuff to basically zero. So if you want to see the index, you've got to exclude all that noise. And then I thought, surely not if they're in Huntsville, surely not in the Washington, D.C. Oh, gosh, here we are. This is probably the wildest search that I was able to do. September 8th. You can see here where the shooting breaks. 3 p.m., he's shot. By 4 p.m., everybody on the planet is searching Losi Center, including people in the Washington, D.C. metro area. But I saw this blip and thought, why? Why on September 8th, 2 days before the shooting, is someone searching the Losi Center? Why? Why? What is it they wanted to know? I'm not going to make the mistake I made a moment ago, but let me just give you an example here. I'm going to open a new tab. Well, I got to close my thing to open a new tab. Hold, please. Let me open a new tab and we'll do a Google search here. We'll do a trend search. Anybody want to name a topic? We'll do it together. If you name a topic, I'll do it. You got the comments here. May need to do the search for Baron Coleman. I don't think that's smart. I could try it, but I'm not going to do that. Accusations, none. If you want me to do a search, if you have any of these terms that have come up over the course of this investigation, you think, I sure would like to know what people are saying about this, I'll be happy to do the search live. If not, I'll do some myself. What about no, people aren't going to search a Mauser 98, are they? Was that what the shooting was? A 98 model Mauser? Let's try it. Mauser 98. Lots the last couple days. You'll see that. Lots of interest the last couple days. Let's go the last 7 days. See, very little interest the morning of. That's kind of weird, actually, because we have no interest and then we have a little. Where's that interest coming from? Oh, I have to exclude this because obviously Utah, Wyoming. Okay. So these are it's a really fascinating tool, by the way. If you want to look in here, you can see what it is people are searching along with Mauser 98. 30-aught Springfield, Tyler Robinson Foundation. I've never heard of that. Fascism. All fascists carry a Mauser 98. Length, dimension, sniper, Tyler Robinson. So you get all these searches here. But let's exclude some time, shall we? Let's just do this just for this. I've not done this one, by the way. We're going to have to go back in time and we're going to have to do it from before the shooting. So let's exclude it to September 9th. And so let's just do a national one. Let's do a month. Let's do April 10 to November 9. And let's just see. I don't know what this is going to show. It might show nothing or not enough information. I do not want to be like Geraldo, ripping open the safe, expecting to see great things. I don't know what this is going to show. I ran 1,000 searches. No, I didn't. I ran like 30 or 40 extra searches that you haven't seen. Some of them actually showed stuff. I only wanted to be on an hour. Okay, so this is interesting. Over the United States, in the month leading up, there was no interest in Mauser 98s until August 31st. And then there was a blip, and we really got a good hit on September 7th, 3 days before the shooting. Now, this is in the entire United States. And Pennsylvania, somebody must have been really excited about a Mauser 98. No interest in Utah. We can look at other subregions here. So let's change the jurisdiction here. Let's do it in the District of Columbia. Again, not making any guarantees, but there is a hit right there, Mauser 98 on August 27th, 2025, and it's the only time in the month that it was searched. Let's expand the parameters from August 10 of 2025, because that's only a month. Let's expand it back 6 months. Still only that hit. And still only April 20th. And if you remember, Losey Center, was it Losey Center that had the April hit? One of these had an April hit. What one was that? I already close it out. So in the District of Columbia, Mauser 98 has been searched on exactly 2 dates. There's not even enough correlating data here to add up anything else. Well, let's go outside. Remember, our good friends in Huntsville like to search the same things as Huntsville 1. Now, granted, maybe it's like that everywhere. So let's try a medium-sized state. Let's do Tennessee. That's a nice medium-sized state. Okay, so one day. Let's do Ohio. That's a kind of a bigger state. Several metro areas. Got a hit there. Okay, so maybe this is just statistical noise. Maybe there's nothing to it. Arizona? No. Let's try Colorado. They hunt out there. No. Let's try Utah. No. So, hey, maybe it's just statistical noise. That's not something I would have showed you had I done the research on that. What else could we look up? What else was it about the shooting? Frank Turek? That was one of his buddies. He was the guy that was allegedly given baseball. I think he was the guy allegedly given baseball signals. And I want to say right now, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe he was involved. But I am going to tell you in a minute why I think someone on the Charlie Kirk team could have been involved, or somebody had intel into the Charlie Kirk camp. Those are your two options. I don't believe that this assassination, I said I wasn't going to do any conclusions. Never mind. Scratch that. Maybe that's another show. Let's do Frank Turek. Because I think this will clear his name, frankly. Was that his name, Frank Turek? Let me look this up. You guys are seeing research on the fly here. Yeah, Frank Turek. Yeah, that's his name. Okay. So this is good because I have the date of the shooting excluded here. Everything starts before. In Utah, there's no searching of Frank Turek. Let's go Washington, D.C. metro area. Oh, there's Frank Turek. But maybe that's just something that happens. Let's do Huntsville, Alabama. Nothing. So Washington, D.C. metro area. So let's just do the District of Columbia. Let's exclude Virginia and Maryland. Oh, that's what that was coming from there. I'm trying to exclude you, Frank. Colorado. Let's just do a random state in the middle of the country. Did we try Utah yet? Is that where we started? Damn, Frank. Trying to help you out here, brother. Seem like a likable guy. Oh, here's a hit. Oh, Florida. Ooh, great. The day before. Okay, so the day before the shooting, somebody in Florida is searching Frank Turek. Let's try a big state, California. Surely we'll get. Oh, no. Texas. A few hits. Is he from Texas? Let's try Arizona, because isn't that where Charlie Kirk is from? Or has been living? No, nothing there. I wonder why Texas. What's up with Texas? What else are they searching? Debate. Oh, he must have been involved in a debate there or something. Is he a debater? Is he a master debater? Here's what I don't think I can do. I don't think this is. Let's just speculate. If you're planning the Charlie Kirk assassination and you're searching terms, would you search the term assassin or assassination? I mean, if you're searching the low season, I'm not suggesting anyone used Google to plan this. That's not it. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm just showing you the facts that are out there on Google Trends. If you want to draw conclusions, that's your business. But let's just run down that rabbit trail for a second. If you're gonna plan the Charlie Kirk assassination, what types of things would you want to Google search? You wouldn't want to Google search assassin. Oh. Here's why I don't think. Okay. Let me. You would have to assume that's something that people have in mind. I just had a thought while I was talking. I want to do District of Columbia. I'll come back to that. I'm not ignoring you. I just don't want to forget to do this. I want to do Frank Turek, but I want to go back like 3 years and 6 months and see if that noise disappears. Yeah, I figured it would, which means it wasn't a huge search. So let's go back a year and 6 months. Yeah. So it's just a small search, and apparently there's an author named Frank Turek. I'll look it up. Yeah, okay. I'll play the game. Utah death penalty. But again, let me tell you something. That's weird that Utah death penalty was searched in the District of Columbia the days leading up to it. But and in February at some time randomly. I don't think if you're going to assassinate a public figure of Charlie Kirk's stature, and I don't mean to make him a president or a senator, although he's probably more famous than most senators. I hear people's names sometimes and they're like, oh, he's a senator from Idaho. I'm like, what? Really? This guy has power? I've never heard of him. I don't think anyone planning the assassination of a public figure is worried about the death penalty. I don't think it's an adequate deterrent. I don't think it's an adequate deterrent. But maybe. What's another thing I can search here? I like doing this live on the fly. Actually, you know what I could do? I could expand some of the parameters around here, maybe clear Derek Maxfield entirely. Let me do that because I feel bad because I don't know that I believe that he was involved. I just wanted to do the search because other people were suggesting they didn't buy the fact that he wasn't involved. So I thought, well, let me clear his name. And then when I couldn't, I thought, all right, I'll go with it. But let me do this. I'm going to look up Derek Maxfield. I will expand some of these parameters. Obviously in the past day. So I'm going to get a custom time range and let's exclude everything after the shooting. So we'll go to September 9th. Actually, I need to go lower than that. Let's go to September 2nd because I have to clear the whole week leading up to the shooting. Ooh, this is a good one. So let me expand this a little bit back. Let's do 6 months again. So in the United States, there's not enough information about Derek Maxfield in the weeks leading up to the shooting, which is good. If I'm Derek Maxfield, that's a good fact for me. I'm happy with that fact. Now let's go to the District of Columbia. So this is good. These are good facts for Derek Maxfield, and I figured they would be. There's one little blip in Arizona in May. Here's why the dates in the last 6 months to a year are relevant, though, because when would Charlie Kirk first have planned? Let me exit out of here for a second. When would Charlie Kirk first have planned that he was going to be? I'm going to leave this. I'll come back to that. When would Charlie Kirk first have planned that he was going to be on Utah Valley University near the Losi Center on September 10th, 2025? Now, I asked Grok. I said, hey, Grok, when was the first public announcement of his appearance, of the Charlie Kirk appearance? And the answer was this university first announced it, I think, on September 1st or 2nd. And he was there on September 10th. So they didn't give a lot of lead time, which would, if that was the first public admission, it would kind of make everything before that pretty worthless. But then I thought, all right, Grok, was it on Charlie Kirk's website or X feed or Facebook page? So I asked it that. And it goes back and says the first mention on any of those sources was, I think, August 27th or something. Oh, okay. Interesting. A little earlier. But it doesn't really explain the hits on the names that came, the Losi Center and all that, weeks or months ahead of time. But then I thought, wait a minute. That's nonsensical. I have been involved in planning large events. I've been to large events that have been planned. Especially on a tour, you don't just plan it the day before you announce it. You've got to contact the university, the chapter. You got to send out a note to your chapter. Hey, I'm going to do a fall tour. If you're interested in hosting me, let me know. That probably happened. And then you get a bunch of responses and you sift through the responses and you try to sort of plan out maybe regionally. I'm going to start on the West Coast. I'm going to work my way east. Or I'm going to start in New York. I'm going to work my way to Los Angeles. And you start going through all this. And then you sort of think, okay, well, let me, I'll start reaching out to people. So you reach out to the chapters. Hey, what dates do you have available? Here are the dates I have available. And then you got to go to the university and you got to get a sponsor. And then you got to get a permission and you got to have a security plan. And you got to have, you might need a permit or something. I don't know. I mean, there are things associated with it. And then you have to line up your logistics. You saw what he took. I mean, it's a truck. It's an 18-wheeler or more of stuff they bring in. Their audio equipment, their security equipment. Should have said that. I wish there'd been better security equipment. Though I'm not sure anything could be done. I mean, short of putting up bulletproof glass everywhere you go. I mean, at some point you just got to trust faith that you're not going to get shot and killed by a psycho. But it takes time. It's months. It could be upwards of 6-9 months or more from the time you first think, hey, team, let's plan a tour for the fall. And there'd be emails going back and forth. And at some point, there would be an email that went back and forth and said, either to Charlie or Charlie's manager or the logistics coordinator or the events coordinator or whatever. I mean, you can't get a team. This is a well-funded operation. Tens of $millions a year spent on this organization. This was not a fly-by-night guy just showing up. Charlie was well made. I heard rumors of how much money was going through that. I don't know, but it was in the tens of millions of dollars annually. When you got a security team you travel with, you got to get a. So at some point, there would have been an email out that said, hey, we can get on the Utah Valley University campus. We'll be in the little courtyard. And then somebody, if they saw that email, could look and say, this is where Charlie's going to be. Now, whether they had an inside man that said, hey, here's Charlie's itinerary where he's going to be the next 6 months, or whether somebody had access to it. There was a weak point. Somebody infiltrated his email system or his text messages, or somebody used a government program to look at his emails or text messages. We know that exists. There have been news items about that. Everybody tends to ignore it, but hundreds of millions of searches of your private information done by non-government employees. So anybody could have looked at it. But you will inevitably discuss where you're going to be. So if somebody wanted to look up, now let's go back and see if this timeline makes sense. If somebody wanted to be where you were going to be, they might know 6 months ahead of time where you were going to be. They may have known before Charlie Kirk knew. They certainly could have known 2 days before. Again, assuming somebody in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and this is Washington, D.C., I've confirmed, it is not Maryland or Virginia. Oh, that's weird. Did you catch that? I'm scared to scroll back down. How did I miss that before? Oh, because that's not excluding it. Okay, that makes sense. Shooting. I got scared there for a second. But somebody in Washington, D.C., 2 days before the shooting, searched the Losi Center. They certainly would have known 2 days ahead of time. Yeah, this comment is where I was headed. 6 months ahead for security reasons. Sure. I think there's at least a 6-month lead time from where you know where you're going to be, or at least your team knows where you're going to be, until the actual date of the performance. I mean, certainly the run of show had it before September 8th. And your security team would have to have looked at a Google map and mapped it all out. This is the one I want to look at. Closest location for police department. Now, this is going to be an interesting search, and I do want to keep this to an hour, and I'm at 58 minutes. Oh, goodness gracious! Let me do this. I'll use this one. Let's see here. What's the name of the town? Orem, Utah. Have we even searched Orem, Utah? Oh, that includes that date. Let's go to, so this is a 6-month look on Orem, Utah, and then I'm going to look up the Orem, Utah Police Department in just a second, but give me just a second. I want to engage a curiosity that just hit me. Orem, Utah, no search there. Yeah, there is a search for Orem, Utah in Washington, D.C. area. Before. Look at that, right there. Between August 31 and September 6th, someone in Washington, D.C. searched Orem, Utah. Now, they may have a kid going to Utah Valley. Who knows? That's weird. Let's just try the District of Columbia itself. Maybe that will exclude it. Okay, that was the shooting. So let's go Orem, Utah Police. Actually, you know what? Do we know where the Orem? It would be the campus police. Oh, it'd be the campus police, David. So on this one right here, the closest police department is going to be on campus. So that kind of screws up that whole search. That sounded interesting. I'm not opposed to that search, but there's just not much there because of the. Thank you, Kevin. I thought so. Hey, this brought me out of retirement. I hadn't intended to do a podcast again anytime soon. And let me talk about that. I'll wrap up with this. Several months ago, I stopped doing my weekly podcast. I was doing it on Sunday night at 7. I went at 6 today. And I told you I would fill you back in and get started again one day. And I don't know if it's going to be regular from this point forward, but I made everything private and all that. You could probably guess why. And that's all I'll say. You could probably guess why I made everything private and stopped talking on air on everything that came to my mind in a given week. But I do want to get back to it. I just need to take a perhaps different approach this time. Uh, maybe not everything that comes to mind needs to be said out loud. Maybe not everything that comes to mind needs to be said out loud. Oh, I just realized something. One, two, three of the 8 people on the wall behind me were either, or four of the 8 people on the wall behind me were either assassinated or shot in an assassination attempt. 4 of the 8. John Kennedy, prior to September 10th, 2025, was the most shocking assassination, I think, ever recorded. There have probably been worse assassinations. But I mean, assassination business goes back thousands of years. Julius Caesar was assassinated with a knife. Wasn't videoed. Not on the internet. John Kennedy's assassination was. And I think that might be why he had such a connection with the people. I've gone back and looked at this. I've been fascinated with Kennedy for a long time. I think his portrait is so haunting. I think his portrait is so haunting. His official portrait, where he's staring down at the ground and you can't even hardly see his face. John Kennedy. Very dark colors, natural colors, browns and golds and things. But if you go back and look, and I've done this, if you go back and look, his approval numbers weren't that great before he got shot. Now, he's one of the most beloved presidents of all time now. But you wonder, to what extent is a public slaughtering contributing to that? See, it's one thing if everybody just woke up to the news the next morning. Hey, John Kennedy got assassinated last night. Did you hear? No, I didn't hear that. It's terrible. It's tragic. And people are probably still crying. Even if you didn't like him. Like, I used to tell people that I wish something would happen to Barack Obama. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't want to live in a country where people get assassinated, where presidents and political leaders get assassinated. You don't want to live in that country. You don't want to live in a country where political figures get assassinated, like Charlie Kirk. You don't want to live in that country. It doesn't end well. And we've all been treated to the lefties and the lunatics on college campuses and in cities and on beaches and all this, where people go around, they do the man on the street stuff. I'm not a big fan of those, but you know, I'm a sucker for them. I watch them. But they go around, they do the man on the street stuff, and they say, oh, what do you think about Charlie Kirk's getting assassinated? Someone's like, somebody had to do it. He deserved it. We've all watched them. We've done our 2 minutes hate on them. We shake our head at Gen Z or Gen Y or whatever they are, and we wonder how society came to this. And I don't have a problem with liberals. I've already told you I love AOC. I do. I don't agree with her on hardly anything. A couple issues here and there. Most of the stuff, I wouldn't want her to be president. I would take almost anyone else in the country over her. I mean, I honestly, if it was like, you get AOC or we're spinning the wheel, and whoever it lands, we're going to put 350 million names in there, legal people qualified. So we'll put 200 million names in there. We're going to spin the wheel for everybody over the age of 35, under the age of, let's say, 70. I've got just as much a chance as most of you do. I would take the wheel over AOC, but I like her. So it's not liberals. I'm not saying that I don't like these man on the street things because of liberals. That's not it. It's the consequences of the mentality. It's the consequences of the mentality. If I could be assassinated, if someone would shoot me because of words that came out of my mouth that they disagreed with, then in theory, morally, if they're morally okay with that, then in theory, morally, they have to agree that it's okay if I kill them first for the words that come out of their mouth because I disagree with them. In other words, if your speech that someone disagrees with is a reason to die, that doesn't matter what the political point of view being espoused is. I hope I said that well. I hadn't planned to talk about this, so I didn't have anything written down. I hadn't thought through it. But it's the truth. If that's your mentality, and that's why I didn't like it when people used to either joke about it or say it seriously about people like Obama or Biden, or even back in the day with Bill Clinton, George Bush. I didn't agree with any of these people. But I didn't want them to die. I see people on the left that drive me absolutely batty, commentators. I don't want them to die. I see lunatics on these man on the street interviews that say some of the most vicious, nasty things you've ever heard. I don't want them to die for it. These leftist podcasters that say some horrible things and, oh, they're inciting. I don't want them to die for their thoughts. I don't want them to be assassinated, murdered, killed, whatever the word is. I don't want it. And the reason is, aside from it being morally wrong to kill people, it's the consequences of the mentality. If it's right that they should die because I disagree with them, then it's right that I should die because they disagree with me, and vice versa. If their opinion is that Charlie Kirk should die because they disagree with him, then they should die if Charlie Kirk disagrees with them or anyone else. And that's not a world you want to live in. That's not it. I've heard a lot of foolish things on the right lately, too, since this, in the last 4 days. Oh, we're going to grab our guns. Stop it. You're not doing anything. Don't. But you're not going to. You don't want to live in that world. You don't want to live in the world where people are going door to door shooting each other, hunting you down like dogs. Like you're a damn squirrel. And you're jumping tree to tree trying to dodge bullets or stay out of a hunt. You hear a snap of a twig and you go tearing off through the fort. You don't want to live in that world. Now, A, it's not right, but B, you won't make it very long. There's a lot of people out there. You remember the Royal Rumble? I don't know why I thought of this. Back in the 80s, early 90s, you'd watch I don't even know, maybe they still do the Royal Rumble, but they'd have like a 30-man wrestling contest. And they'd send people in there like one at a time. And that's at some point there's 18 people and they're beating each other with chairs and they're elbowing each other and they're top roping each other. Atomic elbow. It didn't last very long. People got cycled through pretty quick out of the Royal Rumble. People got cycled through pretty quick. Because when everybody's fighting, you don't have a chance. We're not in that world. Buddy, we are not in that world. If you went to the grocery store today, if you went to church this morning, we are not in that world. We're not in that world. If you stopped and got gas, you go for a walk around your neighborhood, go to the gym, go to Burger King, go get a coffee, you are not in that world. Well, you edited it, but it's the same. I mean, we're not in that world. You don't want to live in that world, and we're not in that world. And I don't think people should be so quick to blame everybody. Like, I'll admit, some of those searches were pretty disturbing that we've covered tonight. And you could draw a lot of conclusions with that. But the reality is we don't have subpoena power over Google. We don't know who made those searches. I do think it's evidence that someone was searching. And I think that's potentially very disturbing. That people are searching the names of these people in the days leading up to the shooting. That's disturbing. Honestly, it's just bad. I don't know what it means. I don't know who it was. I don't know. Are they government employees? Are they state actors? Are they private people? Are they cousins? I don't know. It's weird. It's very disturbing. I think it bears some journalistic outfit looking into, maybe even government agencies looking into. I do think that. If I'm the FBI, I want to know who's searching those. If I'm the Utah State Police, I want to know who's making those searches. I just do. If I'm Tyler James Robinson's family, I want to know. Or Lance Twiggs' family, I want to know. Or if I'm Derek Maxfield, I want to know. Yes, if I'm Derek Maxfield, I want to know who is searching my name in the Washington, D.C. and Huntsville metro areas in the days leading up to the shooting. Because maybe somebody was trying to pin something on me that I didn't have anything to do with. I would like to know that. Or could be worse. I mean, everyone should want to know. More information is better than less information. And I understand it's very early on in an investigation. And in a normal homicide investigation, 4 days in, they haven't even opened the file book yet. This is different because it's Charlie Kirk. But I want to add something here. I'll probably close with this. I don't know. Depends on if you guys comment anything good. Charlie was a good guy, obviously. I mean, stories come flooding in about how great of a human being he was. I never once listened to Charlie Kirk podcast. Not my brand of conservatism. I didn't have a problem with him. I don't listen to Sean Hannity. Don't necessarily have a problem with him. I don't listen to Bill O'Reilly anymore. I did 25 years ago. I don't listen to Megyn Kelly. I don't listen to a lot of these right-wing podcasts everybody listens to. I only have so many hours in a day. I work. I got family. And Charlie was not one of the people I listened to. Now, I'll admit, I did with great glee sometimes come across a YouTube or a TikTok video of Charlie just eviscerating some, nincompoop on a college campus. And it was fun. Watching him freeze in response to what he was saying. It was fun. It was great. But if someone came up to me the week before the assassination and said, "What do you think of Charlie Kirk?" I'd say, take him or leave him. It's not blasphemy. He's not a saint. He's not he's not God. He was a great human being. There's no doubt about it. I'm not taking a thing away from him on that. Please do not misunderstand what I'm saying. He absolutely deserves tonight to be spending the night with his wife and his 2 children. He deserves to teach them to drive, to help them with their algebra, to walk them down the aisle, to hold his grandkids, to take a family vacation with everybody. He deserves that, and he lost it. It was stolen from him, and it was stolen from his wife and his kids. It's horrific. If you believe in the metaphysical world that Charlie Kirk believed in, you believe he's in heaven. He's in a better place. To die is gain, right? To live as Christ, to die is gain. That's the religion Charlie believed in. It's the religion his wife and kids, his wife believes in. His kids are probably too young to believe anything yet. But it doesn't mean that there aren't important things that take place here that were stolen from him and his family. It doesn't mean there aren't important lessons to learn in this mortal coil. It doesn't mean you're better off dead, even though to die is gain. I've always thought that was trite when people say that. Oh, he's in a better place. Well, yeah, I mean, if you believe that, that's true. But it doesn't mean that someone deserves to be cut down at 31 years old with a wife and 2 small children. But I think a lot of the connection to him, because I now feel a very emotional connection to him. I now feel a very emotional connection to Charlie Kirk that I did not feel on September 9th. Again, on September 9th, you come to me and say, Barron, what do you think of Charlie Kirk? I just said, he's all right. You listen to him? Nope. You watch him? Nope. You ever been to an event? Nope. You want to meet him? Nope. You heard good things about him? Sure. Heard good things about a lot of people. I don't particularly care one way or the other about him. But now I feel a deep emotional connection to him. Why? I think the same reason a lot of people feel a deep emotional connection to John Kennedy. I think the same reason. When you watch such a horrific slaughter, you can identify with that person in a way you never could identify before. I got the text. I really do believe, and again, this is someone who really could take or leave him 5 days ago. I got a text. I think it's from my sister. I know it was from my sister. To a family group text. Oh my gosh, Charlie Kirk shot in the neck. WTF or something like that. I don't want to attribute foul language to my lovely sister, but I thought that's weird. Who would shoot Charlie Kirk of all people on the earth to get shot? Why him? So I did what everybody does. I go to X. I search Charlie Kirk shot. Notice nobody goes to CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or ABC or NBC or CBS or the New York Times or the Washington Post or AP or Reuters or UPI. Nobody goes there anymore. They go to their favorite podcaster. They go to their favorite X people. And I went and I searched X, Twitter, and I searched Charlie Kirk shot or something, Charlie Kirk shooting, and I see the distant video. And you hear the crack of the rifle, the boom thump pattern. So you know it's just one shot. I thought, man, one shot. Wow. And you see him slump over, and I thought, man, I hope they just winged him. Like, I hope they just got him in the arm and it just knocked him down, right? You couldn't see anything from the faraway video. Then I made a huge mistake. I went to the comments. And someone had posted the close-up. You know the one. It's kind of from like 10 o'clock from where Charlie was sitting. And stupidly, I clicked it because I was trying to figure out, was he just wounded? Is this something he's going to survive? Or is this something that's like, did it hit him in the middle of the chest, right? And I clicked on it and I saw the neck shot and the massive quantity of blood. I mean, like a gallon of blood in a couple of seconds. I mean, it was a tremendous amount of blood. And I saw the look on his face and the hands and the whole thing. And I was horrified. And I wished I hadn't seen it. And I was on the phone with somebody. I said, don't look at it. If you find it, don't. I think I was on with my sister, maybe. I said, if you find it, do not look at it. Do not go find that video. It's that bad. And I mean, in that moment, I had a welling of empathy in my soul that I never would have imagined I had for the man. It was almost supernatural connection to him in a second. And I've had it ever since. I'm not a crier. I've cried, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a crier. But my eyes even watered up a little bit as I thought about it. I thought, I can't believe what I just witnessed. And I think there's a lot of that. I think that's a lot of the explanation for the shock and the outrage, the sending Air Force 2, the ABC News. Now, I didn't check the other channels, but I pull up YouTube TV on my phone and I look at the top link is ABC News, David Muir, the lead anchor for ABC News. They've broken into regular programming at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time. ABC News. When his death was finally announced, it was announced by the 47th president of the United States. How many people on earth ever in the history of the United States of America have had their death first announced by the president of the United States? I'm not talking about the president acknowledges it. That's happened. It happens a lot. It happens all the time. I'm talking about the very first mention ever of Charlie Kirk's death. The first person to say, I know for a fact he's dead. The President of the United States. Guys, we're fighting wars. We just bombed Somalia for the 75th time this year. I bet you didn't know that. That's the longest running war America currently has going. It's over 20 years. We've bombed Somalia 75 times this year. We bombed Iran. We're providing material support to Israel for their, I don't want to call it a war because that's like saying if a UFC fighter pummels a kindergartner to death, that was a fight. No. But whatever's going on over there, skirmish, we're providing material. We're providing material support to Ukraine, fending off a nuclear power. Like the president does real stuff. Real stuff. The president of the United States does. And he stops what he's doing to announce the death of a citizen. And I got to believe that video had a big part of that. You know why Trey Gowdy probably screamed everyone needed to watch it? Because Trey Gowdy has terrible hair. And he doesn't want people looking at his hair. Now, that's not why. You guys don't know this because a lot of you on the right were brainwashed by Trey Gowdy. You remember me on the air 10, 11, 12 years ago on a daily radio show telling you guys when you guys would call into Trey Gowdy said this, Trey Gowdy said that, Trey Gowdy's a hero, Trey Gowdy's a conservative monster, Trey Gowdy's Tea Party. I was consistent from the beginning. Trey Gowdy's a scam. He's a scam artist. He's a gun grabber. He's not a conservative. Doesn't surprise me he wants everyone to go watch it. He wants to get you emotionally primed to steal your weapons. If you don't think he's a gun grabber, do some research. He's been one for a long time. I'm hearing people say they're okay ignoring First Amendment rights to punish people cheering for Charlie Kirk being killed. I don't think the government should take any action whatsoever with people speaking. In fact, I think it's proscribed in the First Amendment. As interpreted by the Supreme Court of the United States. I'll tell you a funny story about that. The Supreme Court is very clear. First Amendment, Congress shall make no law. Doesn't say anything about the municipal city council. Doesn't say anything about the local school board. Doesn't say anything about the board of mayors and aldermen and city council. It doesn't say anything about your local state reps or state senators. The Congress of the United States of America shall make no law about freedom of speech. That's it. The only thing prescribed by the First Amendment. Now, what people are calling for is Congress to pass a law to restrict the freedom of speech. The Supreme Court has applied the freedom of speech to everything through the 14th Amendment. I will never forget. I took a First Amendment class in law school only because I adored the professor. I won't say her name. She was amazing. She and her husband both taught at the law school. And I had a class with her and I loved her. Not in an attractive way. In fact, if I pulled up a picture, you'd understand what I'm saying. Not to say she's unattractive, but it wasn't that. She was quite a bit older than I was. And it wasn't that. I loved her intellect. Now, this woman was a raging, radical leftist. I mean, more than most people you come across. We're talking leftist law professors. They are on another planet, brother. Not like anything you come across in daily life. These are people who have no consequences for anything they think or say. They have tenure. They're highly paid. They've got endowed chairs. They're going nowhere. So they can say anything, and they do. But I loved her intellect, man. She was smart. I think she and her husband, the rumor was they finished first and second in their class at Harvard Law School. And then they went and started teaching together. But in studying for the final exam, keep in mind the First Amendment's only like that long. Like if I printed it out on a text, it would be like that. It'd be like that much text right there. Or maybe like that. That's short. You shouldn't have to study an entire semester to understand it. Says what it says. But I come in for our review day, and I have two poster boards taped together. I have my hands out of the screen here. Where's the hand? There. Two poster boards taped together, like this long. You know how big a poster board is. I got it taped on the backside, and I've written in like 6-point font all over it. There's arrows going this way and that way and this way and that way, because I had to visualize it because it's so complex the way that it's been interpreted. There's a test for this. There's a lemon test for that. There's a something test for this. There's a something test for that. And you got to know all the elements of all the tests. And you got to know the major cases that put the test in. And you got to know the years. And you got to know what came before and what came after. Because on an exam, you're going to have to articulate all this. So you better know it. You better be able to see it, because you're not going to be able to take your giant poster boards into class with you. But I brought it in to show her, to say, hey, is there anything I need to fix? Is this pretty much sum it up? And she said, it's pretty close. And I said to her, I said, Professor Blank, isn't it a shame that it takes me two poster boards, probably 1,000 words, all these arrows and pictures and stars and all? Isn't it a shame that it takes me all of that to summarize like 40 words? Do you think that's what the founders had in mind? And she made a comment that gave me a lot of insight into what the left, how they think. It was brilliant. I don't agree with it, but it was brilliant. The Supreme Court doesn't exist to tell us what the founders thought. Young Barinovich. The Supreme Court exists to tell us what we wish the founders would have said. How shocking that is to a young conservative. Let me say it again. The Supreme Court exists. This was her leftist opinion. The Supreme Court exists to tell us what we wish the founders would have said. In other words, the founders couldn't have imagined we'd have local school boards that have as much power as they have. And had they known, we wish that they, if we could go back and tell them, we wish they would have said, hey, not only Congress, but state governments, county governments, subdivisions, cities, municipal corporations, nobody in government needs to restrict your right to speech. Then I said, well, that's fine, but we have all these actual restrictions. Time, place, and manner restrictions. That's a restriction on speech. Free speech zones, a time, place, and manner. You can protest on this day in this area. We'll give you you have to get a permit. You have to do this. You have to do that. I'm getting a call from somebody. They must not have gotten the message that I'm on air. Or maybe they're telling me to shut up. It's a lawyer. Not my lawyer, though. I said, but, and then her position was, yes, but we wish they would have said that because it makes a more orderly society. And I will say on some of the things, I tend to agree with her. On some of the constitutional issues, I tend to agree with her. That there are things that if we could go back in time, we wish the Supreme Court would have said. I've got no problem with Miranda. I wish they would have gone farther. Miranda versus Arizona, the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, being notified of all. I got no problem with that. I wish they would have gone farther and said, and cops can't lie to you to get you to trick you into saying something. They have to be honest with you. And if you answer something and they weren't truthful, it's not going to be held against you. But they'll never do that. I wish they'd have gone farther and said, hey, when the FBI interviews you, they have to record it. You don't get to be judged on whether you're honest based on some written summary of what they believe they remember you said. I think that's nonsense. Especially in the day and age when everything is recorded. I didn't log on to talk about any of that. I can attest to your stance on bad hair, Trey. Yes, I've been consistent on Mr. Gowdy from the beginning. Always was suspect of him. Anyone with hair that bad cannot be trusted. I've seen very few people in Congress with worse hair than Trey Gowdy. James Traficant had worse hair, but I think his was a rug. What's the guy in Alabama with the rug? Mike Rogers. Give it up, Mike. You're fooling nobody. There's no one on the planet that thinks that's not a rug. And I don't care if people wear rugs. But get a good one. Get a believable one. If the first second I see you, I'm like, rug. That's a rug. Then you're not fooling anybody. You might as well not wear it. You guys don't know this is a rug. Just kidding. It's not. But if I tilt my head down, it's a bad angle. So I won't. All right, guys. Anything else up here? Do you have an opinion on the differences in the faces of the alleged suspects and the ones they posted looking for him? No, I don't, because the faces that you're probably thinking of were artificial interpretations. A lot of people ran the initial blurry images of the suspect that the Utah Valley Police released when they said, help us find, or the Utah State Police maybe, when they said, help us find this person. A lot of people ran those blurry images through an AI, and the AI kind of hallucinated what they thought it probably looked like, and it turned out to not at all look like the suspect. And so what you're probably thinking the original picture was not the picture. How do we normalize getting help to those mentally ill, disturbed, who can't process opposition, that go to extremes, that think that thought process is normal? Well, that's a big question. Somebody with that icon, avatar. How do we normalize getting help to those mentally ill, disturbed people? People aren't going to want to hear what I'm about to say. And this is me thinking, should I say it? I've learned a lot since going off air a few months ago. Not everything that comes in my head needs to be said out loud. Let me think for just a second. Ooh, the guy who was calling me has done his own Google searches. Oh, wow. I might have to do a follow-up show. Interesting. I'm not going to go with those because I didn't do it and I'm trying to wind down. But there's something to this Google Trends search, guys. There's something to what we discovered tonight. I don't know what it is. Oh, back to how do we normalize getting help? I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it because you guys aren't ready to hear it. Not all of you. Some of you will say, yeah, you're exactly right. But many of you are not formed sufficiently to hear and accept what I am going to tell you. That is truth, by the way. Maybe I'll get this channel going again on some regular basis. I'm not going to do Sunday night at 7 every night. I'll probably mix it up, maybe go midweek some when I have time. But I think I am going to get it fired up again. I missed the microphone. I did this daily for years. I did it as a fill-in basis for years. I think I calculated one time I spent like 11,000 hours on air at one point. And I'm told if you do 10,000 hours of something, you're an expert. I'm just telling you what I've been told. But my answer to this question, I'll hint at it. I don't know that they're mentally ill or disturbed. I don't think a lot of what we characterize as mental illness is mental illness. Didn't Miranda play an organ, have goats, and feed them Bluebell ice cream? Yes. So when I was on the air regularly, we had characters that would call in, including Craig, who's commenting here. And one of them was a girl named Miranda. Miranda lived out away from town, her character. And for a long time, I tried to figure out if it was really a woman from Maplesville named Miranda. And she had a goat, and you could hear the goat in the background. And she would play her organ. Play her organ. Yeah, that's the way I wanted to say it. Or like an organ, not like a church organ. Not, come on, guys, get your head out of the gutter. And she alleged that she would wear a Confederate bikini down on the river and cause commotion. She would feed Bluebell ice cream to the goat, and it would give it gas. And I actually had the occasion one time to sit in the office with the mayor of tiny, tiny Maplesville. His name, Hayes something, Hayes something. I don't even remember why I was up there. I was up there working, doing something for a consulting shop we worked for. And I asked him point blank, I was like, hey, it's a small town. I'm sure you know everybody. He's like, I know everybody in town. I personally know everybody in town. I was like, hey, I need to know what you know about a girl named Miranda. He's like, I don't think there's anyone here named Miranda. I was like, well, she lives here and she has a goat. He goes, buddy, that doesn't narrow it down any. Everybody here has a goat. I'm at a wedding one day. A very dear friend of mine had a child getting married, a daughter getting married. And we're at the wedding. And this woman walks up to me and she starts talking. And I look at her and I said, Miranda? And she died laughing. I mean, died laughing. I said, what is your real name? And she told me who she was and who her husband was. And I was familiar with the family. Actually had met the daughter in another profession or another volunteer effort, I guess we'll say. I don't want to out who Miranda was for those that don't know and those who are watching that remember her character. But she said some really outrageous things. Yeah, she had a goat. Okay. Guys, this has been fun. I probably, in light of the conversation that I just saw or the little clips I just saw, will be doing a follow-up on this issue. I encourage you. Where's the camera? There it is. I encourage you to go to Google Trends and do your own searches. When you do them, there's a download button. Download the Excel spreadsheet. Screen cap the search. When you screen cap the search, make sure, I'll pull one up here and we'll look at it together. Make sure when you screen cap the search, I'll show you what you need to capture. Make sure you capture this box up here that gives your search term, these boxes that give the parameters, and this right here, the interest over time. I'm not as worried about this stuff down here. This is the button right here I'm talking to you about. That's called download. You click that and it'll start downloading it to your browser or your download file, depending on if you're on Mac or Chrome or whatever. I encourage you to do this. And I encourage you to do it on other breaking stories. I think you'll be shocked at how disturbing some of the information you find is. I do. I think you'll be shocked. This has been fun. I went 40 minutes longer than I wanted to. If you want to follow up, you're more than welcome to drop a comment. I encourage you, I'm told, you're supposed to like and subscribe and click the notification so you know when I go live in the future. And in the meantime, have a nice day.